The Wikileaks founder Julian Assange is promising to release new data on arms trading, mass surveillance and the US presidential election. All the documents will be available by the end of the year, but some will be released this week. The whistleblowing website has now been spilling secrets for 10 years. Paul Brennan reports.
In January 2007, a new web domain was registered which would change the way we see the world. Wikileaks.org was established to expose secret wrongdoing. Sophisticated encryption protected its sources, and its founder would become world famous. Its pinnacle came in 2010 with two big releases relating to US military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, and including a video showing a US helicopter crew mowing down a group of unarmed civilians, including two journalists in Baghdad. In November 2010, another big WikiLeaks release of US diplomatic cables revealing the confidential observations of US embassies around the world.
That put the U.S. focus in the Middle East in terms of working better with the Muslim world in free fall, in a chaotic state, because we could no longer just work with someone like Ben Ali, the president of Tunisia, steeped in this corruption and embezzlement, when the people of Tunisia were reacting just the opposite.
WikiLeaks' success owed much to the vision of its charismatic founder, but publishing unredacted documents was creating internal tensions at the website. Worse was to come in 2010, while in Sweden, Assange was accused of sexual offences by two women.
In a way, Julian Assange is a brilliant and brave man. He's achieved extraordinary things with an incredibly limited team, limited budget. But in a way, because he is WikiLeaks, that's also its greatest weakness.
In 2013, when NSA contractor Edward Snowden exposed the US intelligence agency's mass surveillance programs, he leaked direct to selected journalists, not to WikiLeaks. And the 2016 data dump, known as the Panama Papers, was published not by WikiLeaks, but by a consortium of investigative journalists. Speaking via video link to mark the 10th anniversary of the website, Assange says WikiLeaks is far from finished and has promised a fresh flurry of confidential documents.
Our upcoming series include significant material on war, on arms, on oil, on Google, on the US election, and on mass surveillance.
When it began, WikiLeaks was unique and pioneering. 10 years on, its influence appears to have dwindled. But the whistleblowers and hackers it inspired continue to impact fundamentally the way citizens regard their governments and big business. WikiLeaks has literally changed the world we live in. Paul Brennan, Al Jazeera.
Let's take you live now to Berlin, and we can speak to Sarah Roberts. She's from the Department of Information Studies at the University of California in Los Angeles. Thanks for being with us on the programme. How do you now view WikiLeaks 10 years on from its founding?
Thanks for having me. Well, I think I concur largely with your report, which says that WikiLeaks has fundamentally altered the playing field in terms of speaking back to state power that has expanded greatly its ability to survey citizens and to gather and collect data, as well as doing so under the cloak of secrecy and by invoking the need to protect the state at all costs. So WikiLeaks really stepped in a time when these things were heightened, when the practices of gathering data intelligence were being facilitated by vast digitization programs and by, in many cases, the collusion of corporate actors with the state, and pushed back. So love it or hate it, you have to recognize the influence of WikiLeaks one way or the other.
Is it still, though, as influential, as relevant as it once was, or has it been superseded now by other investigative journalism?
Well, I think one thing to point out is the fact that the power of WikiLeaks has come in large part from the interpretations that journalists have undertaken with the data WikiLeaks have released over the years. And in its wake, we've seen Edward Snowden, we've seen the Panama Papers, we've seen other leaks that are often taken up, interpreted, analyzed, and given context by outlets like The Guardian, by outlets like The Intercept, and so on. And so I think without that investigative journalism aspect, the general public would have a great deal of trouble digesting this vast amount of information. So I think it's important to recognize that aspect too.
There's been so much debate about WikiLeaks. What do you think? Is it totally a force for good to uncover state secrets, to investigate wrongdoing? Or are you troubled by some of the security secrets that have been leaked?
Well, I think to tell a sort of a black and white tale about WikiLeaks is to greatly simplify and reduce its actual impact. I don't think it's either or, and in fact, it's up to the public and to those of us who receive the information to interpret it and decide for ourselves how we react to what is being done in the name of our countries, in the name of the state, and so on. One thing that's happened over the years certainly is that WikiLeaks has been conflated with Julian Assange himself. And as you pointed out, he's a controversial person. He often seems to be acting with a moral compass that's uniquely his own. And that becomes difficult for people who want to interpret the legacy of WikiLeaks separate from who Assange himself is.
Sarah Roberts, really good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us there from Berlin. Thank you.